Good morning and welcome to Michigan Farm and Garden. I'm Jody Pollock-Newsome and I'm your host. We have a great show lined up for you this morning. This morning we're going to talk about some very important legislation. We're going to talk about the Farm Bill, and we're also going to talk about some other legislation, the Egg Bill. Stay tuned. Good morning, and I guess also happy December. I hope you all had an absolutely wonderful Thanksgiving, and you can see the background behind me. We do have a new sponsor, Making It a Real Michigan Christmas, that group of organizations. And also, if you did miss last week's show, you want to make sure you go to YouTube, check out Michigan Farm and Garden, and you can see the show where we walk you through the different kinds of trees and really talk about the attributes of those and really help you pick out the right Christmas tree for you. So make sure, if you don't already have that real tree, go there, learn a little bit more, and then go out there and get your Michigan Christmas tree. For this morning's show, though, we are going to talk about some legislative opportunities, some legislative topics, and I am very excited. We have with us Senator Stabenow. She's the chair of the House Ag, Nutrition, and Forestry Committee, and she's going to talk with us about the Farm Bill. You know, we hear a lot of information about legislation. We hear a lot of information about the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill affects agriculture and the commodities, but it also affects the nutrition and the feeding programs. So she's going to talk to us a little bit about that, give us an update, tell us where they've been, where they're at, and what's going to happen if the legislation doesn't move and we don't get a Farm Bill passed. Especially for us here in the state of Michigan, over $90 billion is brought into our economy each year through the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill has some very important safety nets, especially when we look at years like last year when we have the drought. So certainly a lot of farmers are going to be watching that, but as consumers, you also want to know what that means and how that affects you. Then there's also another piece of legislation called the Egg Bill. And I have Rob Connect with me this morning, and he is going to talk with me. He's with Vanderbunty Eggs. He's going to talk with me about the Egg Bill. You know, we hear a lot about looking at animals and animal welfare, so he's going to talk about the bill, what it means, and why they support that bill. Then I'm going to share a wonderful recipe with you. It comes from Virginia Strach of Muskegon, and it is for gingerbread cookies. Folks, it's going to be a great show. Stay tuned, and we'll be back with our first guest right after the Michigan Farm and Garden Fact of the Week.
It's time for the Michigan Farm and Garden Fact of the Week, brought to you by the Corn Marketing Program of Michigan.
Michigan's food and agriculture sector contributes an estimated $91.4 billion to Michigan's economy. That's an increase of more than 50% between 2004 and 2010. For more information, go to productcenter.msu.edu. And welcome back. I am very excited. We are back with Senator Debbie Stabenow, Chair of the House Ag, Nutrition, Forestry Committee. Welcome to the show. It's good to have you here.
It's great to be with you. Absolutely. It's good. We have worked in so many different ways together.
We have.
For years, and it's great to be on your show.
Well, I am so glad to have you here. So excited. I want to have you tell us a little bit about being chair of the Senate Ag. I think I got it all. It's a big title.
It's a big title. It's a big title, yeah. Well, it's interesting. First of all, as you know, almost 1 out of 4 jobs in Michigan are connected to agriculture or the food industry. So this is a big deal for us. Everybody talks about it being the second largest industry. There are times it's the largest. I mean, particularly when we've gone through real downturns in manufacturing. So, so it's important to us. 16 million people work in this country because of agriculture. So when we talk about the Farm Bill, it's a jobs bill. Every 5 years, we write a bill that has a whole range of support for production agriculture, energy, rural development, which means supporting rural communities with loan programs for businesses and housing and local units of government and so on. Nutrition programs, which are a big part of connecting production, agriculture, and nutrition in our schools and so on. So it's all there together, and we write it every 5 years. And so this is the year that it has to be done. And the challenge for us, as you know, is that while we did in the Senate, we went first this year. We actually got it done early. It expired in September, into September. We actually got our work done in June. But the House had to pass a bill, and so we passed a bipartisan bill, came together, looked at every single page of the Farm Bill with your help, with the help of Michigan farmers and everybody involved. We came up with 100 different programs or authorizations that could be eliminated or combined. You know, maybe it was duplication. We cut down on conservation programs so there's less paperwork and it's more effective. So we did all of that. We saved over $23 billion. And it was bipartisan. We went to the House. They passed a bipartisan bill out of committee, and then for the first time in the history, I think, of the country, the House will not take it up. The Speaker of the House, John Boehner, refuses, and his leadership refuses to put this on the floor for a vote. And so we've now expired the Farm Bill as of September 30th. We're on fumes, and if we don't get this done by the end of the year, a whole range of Depression-era policies begin to kick in. And it starts with milk prices going through the roof. So it's really crazy, and we've got to get this done.
Well, and I know you and in your work in the committee, you have so been ahead of the curve looking at working with the commodity groups, and $23 billion is not an easy cut. You did that through that team approach.
That's right. In fact, it's twice as much as the recommendation of what was called the Simpson-Bowles Deficit Reduction Commission, this group of folks that came together to recommend cuts. We actually said, look, we're willing to go a step farther, but let those of us who understand agriculture and support farmers make the decisions. So we did it, not by just across-the-board cuts without any analysis of what's important. We went in and we actually made policy changes and combined things, and we took 23 conservation programs and cut them down to 13 and made them a lot more flexible and saved about $6 billion. And so we went across the board, and in the food programs, we tightened up the fraud and abuse areas that are so important. We in Michigan have seen a couple of lottery winners be able to get food help. That's, of course, outrageous. We've seen some retailers that have turned in, food cards for folks for cash, for drugs, and so on. We've tightened all that up, saved $4.5 billion. So we've done our part. It just needs now to get done so Michigan farmers know what the policies are going into next year's growing season.
Well, and I think that's so important because I don't always think consumers realize, you need those safety nets, you need that risk management, especially when we look at a year like we just came off of with this weather.
Yep, no question. Well, and what we did, as you know, instead of providing subsidies every day, all the time, whether it's needed or not, we said we're going to support crop insurance, risk management. In other words, you have insurance, and then if there is a problem like we saw this year with drought or with the freeze that wiped out our cherries and hurt the grapes and apples and so on, we want to be there when folks really need it. We want to be there when our Christmas tree folks, a big industry in Michigan, really need it. Well, I've authored something called the Tree Assistance Program. So if you lose the tree, you're insured for up to 70% of the cost for replanting new trees. So you don't get help all the time. So taxpayers aren't just giving a government check like it used to be. But if there's a weather problem or something else beyond the farmer's control, then we step in because we all have a stake in having a strong, healthy food supply. We have the safest, most affordable food supply in the world. Other countries go to war over lack of food. We have been blessed because we have folks that are willing to battle the riskiest business around, which is battling the weather, which is more and more of an issue every year. And what we're doing is saying we want to support them with tools to help them manage their risk.
Well, and I think that's so important because a lot of us just take for granted because we always have the food, and,
Right.
and our jobs are not dependent on the weather.
Right.
That is a very scary component to a business.
Right. Well, when it warms up again in February and March, and then all the blossoms come out on the apple trees and cherry trees and the grapevines, and then we suddenly get the late freeze in April, which we do so many times, and everything's wiped out. That's a problem. That's a problem for us being able to get the apples that we want in the store, and for children to be able to get, you know, the fresh fruit and vegetables in schools, and for us to be able to have affordable fruits and vegetables. And so it's all connected. And what I am proudest of in our Farm Bill, first of all, Michigan's on every page, of course, but secondly, we've gone in and really worked together and say, okay, we're willing to make tough decisions about what's important, but we have to support agriculture. And so I think we hit that right middle point, and it is bipartisan. And these days, there's not a whole lot of things that you can say are bipartisan. So, so what we need right now is for the House just to pass this and get it done.
So, well, I think we'll take a quick break. So, Senator, thank you. We'll be back right
Great.
after this message.
Wonderful.
Folks, stay tuned. We'll be back. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Farm Bill, tell you what you need to do, and kind of tell you what some of those hot topics are and what we can look forward to in the future. Stay tuned. We'll be back right after this message.
The Cherry Marketing Institute wants you to know about tart cherries. Cherry's red color comes from powerful antioxidants. Available year-round, it's easy to incorporate cherries into your daily diet. Visit choosecherries.com.
Michigan's 1,000 apple growers take pride in producing delicious apples from one generation to the next. From the Great Lakes come great flavors. Look for locally grown Michigan apples.
Have Jody speak at your next agricultural event. Go to jodylive.com.
And welcome back. We are back again with Senator Debbie Stabenow. Welcome back, Chair of the House, Ag, Nutrition.
Good to be with you.
Forestry Committee, there we go.
That's right, that's right.
Well, we were just talking a little bit this morning, certainly the Farm Bill.
Right.
You know, and talking about how you were able to get out there, get in front of it, you know, look at a program and have $23 billion in cuts,
Right.
but also reprioritize.
We did. We looked at things that don't make sense anymore, subsidies that are given every year regardless of need or the market situation. So we moved to risk management. And at the same time, we know there's a growing desire for more farmers markets, more support for locally grown food. I've been able to get changes so that Michigan schools can buy from local farmers. So we want to support local growers and be able to, we've gone in Michigan from, I think 10 years ago we had 90 farmers markets, and now it's well over 300, maybe closer to 400 now. I mean, it's just grown like crazy. And so we increased support for local food systems and fruits and vegetables by 25%, even though we were cutting other areas. Because I think it's important. It's not just about cutting spending, it's about what are the priorities, what's important for the future of agriculture. And I'm really proud of Michigan because we know how to work together and come together, as you know. And we have more diversity of crops than any state but California. And I think that has helped us to appreciate across lines how to work with each other. And I know you're going to be talking about the egg bill and the importance of the agreement that the egg producers came to with the Humane Society. This is really historic in that people sat down of different views, very different approaches, and listened to each other and tried to come to a compromise. And we ought to be rewarding that and supporting that. And I'm a co-sponsor of the bill that would put that agreement into law, and we need to get that done. But it's an example of how when we sit down and listen to each other, we can actually move forward. And that is what I think is a tradition in Michigan agriculture. And it's one that, frankly, across the country, we could use some more lessons learned. People ought to be looking at Michigan and what's being done here.
Well, and as you know, somebody who works in agriculture and the agriculture groups, I think we feel that we've tried to look at that, what's good for us, what's
Right.
good for the state,
Right.
and yeah, how do we move everything forward? And
Right.
you know, just like on the Farm Bill, we looked at stuff, we had discussions and said, this is nice, but
Right.
we could survive without it.
Right.
And
Right, exactly.
I think we felt as agriculture that many other committees should have come to the table and said, this is what we can do, and this is what we're willing to
right.
give up. So.
Well, and if you think about it, I mean, right now we have a huge deficit. And if every other committee and every other group did what we did, Ag was the only one who did it, House, Senate, bipartisan approach, and everybody looked at all their programs, what's important, what's not important to do. When we look at what's happening to families, you know, across the country, how folks have been hit and the need to create jobs and so on. If everybody had come up with savings of 23 or 24 or 25 billion dollars, we'd have a big deficit reduction. And so that's important. And I want to say one other quick thing before we end, and that is the Farm Bill really is about jobs, and as you know, there's a whole new area around energy, not only biofuels, but bio-based manufacturing, where we have the opportunity to create jobs by creating energy through agricultural products and byproducts, but also using agricultural products to offset chemicals, offset petroleum in products, and create whole new industries. And that's one of the things that is a big priority for me going forward into next year.
Well, and I think that is so important because, you know, we talk about new industries, and I know there's a lot of talk of, well, you know, it's new industry, shouldn't it get up and get going? New industries do need that government support, almost like the fledgling to get it ready to go on its own.
Right.
And I think that's so important, and I've seen in the past your vision to help get things going and started.
Yep. Well, as we know, I mean, you have research and development, and then somebody has a great idea, and the bank is willing to fund the fourth or fifth one after they've really shown that they worked out the bugs, but there's no help to get it going for the first one. So, for instance, up in Fremont by Gerber Baby Food, I was pleased to help get a USDA loan guarantee that would back up a loan for a Michigan company called Novi Energy that has now come online using food waste from Gerber Baby Food and the farmers around Northwest Michigan to create energy. It's a biodigester where they take the waste, they mix it in with enzymes and so on, and they end up creating power that they're selling to the grid, and they're going to be powering 1,500 homes with electricity in Northwest Michigan. Well, that got going because there was a loan guarantee from the Department of Agriculture that came in and said, we believe that this is a good enough bet on science that we're willing to back this up to show that it can be successful. And I believe it will be successful. And when it is, they're looking at going to rural communities across Michigan and across the country using food waste to create energy. And what a great thing. And they're creating jobs, they're saving money, they're creating new opportunities for farmers. It's a win-win.
Well, and certainly as we look at that, Senator, you know, congratulations on the election.
Thank you.
As you're looking ahead, what are some of those other things that, you know, that's on your list of things you want to make sure we get accomplished?
Well, first of all, I want to make sure that you know, the Farm Bill gets passed, and my preference would be that they just pass the Senate Farm Bill because we've got strong bipartisan support. But you know, we certainly, if we have to compromise, we will want to get that done. Then I want to refocus on this whole new bio-based economy and jobs, and how we can create new jobs through new kinds of innovations. And then I think we also have got to look at what's happening around weather patterns. We've got to take a tough look at what's happening here for farmers and what we could see happening in agriculture that may help that situation, because you know these changes, the volatility in the weather is hitting agriculture right between the eyes, and we've got to really examine that. And then we also, my committee also oversees something called the commodities trading, the futures trading exchange, which helps farmers and others manage risk on the futures markets and so on, commodities markets. And the bill authorizing that is up for reauthorization next year. So we'll be looking at how do we make sure the systems work for farmers, and we don't have something like happened with MF Global where they used customers' money when they were not supposed to do that, and people lost a lot of money in that process. We've now gotten back over 80% of the money for our farmers and grain elevators and so on. But as we go into this whole question of how do we manage financial markets, we'll be discussing that next year as well.
Well, it sounds like you have your hands full.
I do, yes.
Well, Senator, thank you so much.
Always
I so appreciate it.
Always good to be with you.
And when you're back, let us know, and we'll get some updates, and we'll stay in touch as to how things are going.
It's a deal.
Great.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Folks, we certainly know the importance of agriculture to our state, but we talk about on the show, you need to get involved in policy, you need to know what's going on, you need to get engaged, because we have great people out there looking out for us. You just need to make sure your voice is heard. Pick up the phone and let your legislator know on the national level, we need to move the Farm Bill. Stay tuned, we'll be back right after this message.
This chicken is beak over claw for meal made from U.S. soybeans. Now, one chicken may not be too much to cluck about, but suppose we add another, and another, and another. Before long, you've got billions of hungry customers around the world all clamoring for the same thing, our soybeans. Learn more about the billion-dollar appetite of animal agriculture at BeyondTheElevator.com. Brought to you by America's soybean farmers and their checkoff.
And welcome back. We are back with Rob Connect of Vanderbunty Eggs. Rob, welcome back. It's good to have you back.
Thank you very much.
Well, certainly, we've been talking policy this show, and poultry is certainly an important industry, and for you guys, you have some legislation. Senator Stabenow mentioned it. She supports it. You guys are working on an egg bill.
An egg bill, that is correct. And I hope people aren't sick of hearing about politics and policies, but the egg bill is something that's really important to us as a company, as a family farm here in Michigan, and it's something important to the Michigan agricultural economic health. Do you want me to explain a little bit about what it is?
Yeah, a little what it is, and let's talk about how we got here, and because this is an awesome story.
Okay. Well, it's a long story that really dates back to probably the 50s or 60s when birds were on the ground. And birds were on the ground and weren't in any kind of enclosure, and people were getting sick from the eggs. And so they put them into enclosures. And over the years, those enclosures have changed and evolved. And what we have done, and when I say we, I'm talking about the egg industry, is partnered with the Humane Society of the United States to develop the most animal-friendly living environment, as well as producing safe, quality food. And that's really what we've done here by producing what are called colony-enriched housing for birds.
Well, and I think that's so important because there's a lot of different things out there. There's a lot of terms out there, and I don't think people always understand the health reasons sometimes that go behind the management choices that farmers make.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and that's where this is such a great compromise because of the twofold. Because of the animal welfare, this really is better for the birds in a lot of ways, which I can explain. And it's better because you can produce great, safe, quality food. And you can produce it at a level that, everybody in an economic time like we're in right now can appreciate. Because not everybody has, hundreds and hundreds of dollars to spend on groceries every week, and with all the other things. Gas is $4 a gallon. I just saw it on the way in here. And people can't sustain that. And this bill would assure that the animals would be treated in the right way, and that the Michigan producer would be able to produce an egg that is safe for everybody.
Well, and I do think that's so important. And too, as things change and as time has changed, we talk about, well, this is how we did it in the 50s, and so much has happened with science. People used to get sick. We didn't know why. When you look at the science behind that, the science behind the animal care, things have really evolved to a point where you can really get very specific.
Absolutely. And so one of the things that I would point out is that the environment that they live in is so great. They can exhibit natural behavior, which is the biggest thing that you want for a bird. Because when that bird can be in what a natural environment is like, she's going to be happier. And happy birds lay good eggs. And it's not rocket science. Egg farming is not rocket science. So if you have happy birds that are treated the right way, then you're going to have great eggs. And that's what we want to produce. And by doing this, we really protect ourselves. This egg bill, when I say this, I mean the egg bill. You really protect everything that we have done and built here over the last 50 years in terms of egg production here in Michigan. and we can stay competitive with all the other states in the other country, in the whole country, and we don't have to go the way of some of the other industries in the area that have not had as much success.
Well, and I think too, looking at legislation like this, I think it's nice when you can look at that whole approach countrywide instead of state by state by state by state. That's when things get really cloudy.
Right, and that's the danger. That you really touched on the danger there, Jody, with if each state has different regulations, we produce a lot of eggs here, and if we can't send them to Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, Texas, California, New York, how are we ever going to be able to stay competitive? So we really need to protect ourselves with federal legislation like this that the egg bill really drives home indefinitely. And it's great for the bird, it's great for food, and it really represents a great compromise between, what the Humane Society and a group like us who, we've been at odds in the past, but things change and we can compromise and get better.
Well, and I think Senator Stabenow said it really well too. One of the things that Michigan agriculture is really good at is partnerships. Mm-hmm. We seem to be able to come together, sit down at the table, and really figure out ways to make things work.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And this is a great example of that. And some of us compromise at home. And when I told my wife that we were doing this compromise with the HSUS, she said, "Well, that's great," and she takes credit for it because she taught me how to compromise. Or maybe that's not really a compromise, but she, what Senator Stabenow is saying there is exactly right. This is a great example of how Michigan is compromising on this and we're going to be able to go into the future with this. And we are really one of the most progressive states in the country as far as how this is all shaking out. So. Well,
and I know we always run out of time way too quick, but I also know Michigan is a huge leader when we look at eggs and egg production.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We're in the top 10. You'd have to check me on this, but I believe we're 9th overall, which also means we have a surplus. So all the great people of Michigan can't eat all the eggs. So we have to be able to send those elsewhere. And and we're not the only, Michigan's had a tough go of it with this economy. We're starting to turn around, but there's other states that have had a hard time with this too. And I would love to be able to produce, good, healthy, economic food for them by treating animals the right way. So, it's great for Michigan, great for the rest of the country.
Rob, I think you just said it best. Folks, right here from one of our producers in state, if you see your legislator, contact your legislator, tell them support the egg bill. We'll be back right after this message.
This hog is head over hoof for meal made from U.S. soybeans. Now, one hog isn't that impressive, but suppose we add another, and another, and another. Before long, you've got billions of hungry customers around the world all clamoring for the same thing. Our soybeans. Learn more about the billion-dollar appetite of animal agriculture at BeyondTheElevator.com. Brought to you by America's soybean farmers and their checkoff.
So you all knew that when it comes to agriculture, Michigan was certainly on the cutting edge. But did you all know how involved we are with legislation, how important policy is, and all the different facets we have going on here in our state to help move things forward? Just kind of wanted to leave you with that thought as we've had all this discussion this morning. Also, I want to tempt you a little bit. The holidays are here. Very, very good time to be able to make some wonderful recipes. This is a gingerbread cookie recipe that comes to us from Virginia Strach of Muskegon. Basically, you're going to go ahead and take your pudding mix, your butter, your sugar, mix those together, add eggs, which you've heard of, we have plenty, blend those well, combine the flour, the baking soda, the ginger, the cinnamon, mix that with the pudding mixture, chill it, then roll it out, cut those, and then you want to put those in the oven for 350 degrees for 10 to 12 minutes. And I do have to tell you, I don't have all my Christmas stuff out yet, so you can actually also make them in rounds as well as in gingerbread shapes. And if you want this recipe, visit us online at MichiganFarmandGarden.com or write to Michigan Farm and Garden Recipes, Box 461, Williamston, Mich. 48895. Have an absolutely wonderful week, and I will see you back here next weekend. Bye-bye.